Nobody wants a single mom with baggage. That's what my sister said, out loud smiling, into a microphone at her own wedding. For the record, my name is Megan Hale. I'm 34 years old, a single mother, and I work as an accountant in a small town outside Charleston, South Carolina. I have a son named Noah who's 10 years old, sharp as a tack, gentle by nature, and deeply kind in a way that makes my chest ache sometimes. He's everything I hope to raise in a world that can be cruel without even trying. Over the years, I learned how to keep my head down. I learned how to survive quiet judgment, polite distance, and the cold shoulders, especially when it came from my own family. But standing there that day, in a ballroom full of polished smiles and pressed suits, listening to my sister laugh while turning my life into a punchline, something inside me finally broke. What she didn't know, what no one in that room knew, was that the man she was about to marry already knew who I really was. He knew me long before he ever met her, and he had a story of his own. I've always trusted numbers. Numbers don't lie. They don't whisper behind your back or make assumptions. People, though? People are a whole different problem. That's why my tiny accounting office above a bookstore in Charleston felt safe to me. It was just me, my calculator, and Noah's crayon drawings taped proudly to the filing cabinet. "Mom, you almost done?" Noah stuck his head through the doorway, his cheeks flushed pink from soccer practice. He was all elbows and restless energy, with a grin that could soften even the hardest day. 5 minutes, I told him, finishing up one last entry on my computer. "Homework's mostly done," he said. "Spelling's finished, but I need help with the American Revolution." I laughed. "Of course you do." On our walk home, the air smelled like sea salt and blooming azaleas. Charleston was stunning in the spring, though I barely noticed anymore. My mind stayed crowded with numbers, schedules, and family expectations, especially the newest one. Dinner at my mother's house, with my sister Vanessa and her fiancé. My mother, Patricia, didn't invite us. She issued instructions. She always had a way of making it feel like we were guests in our own lives. Vanessa had always been the golden child. Perfect hair, perfect smile, perfect everything. And now she was marrying Daniel Cross, a financial advisor with a Harvard degree, and a face that looked like it belonged on a billboard. When Noah and I arrived, Patricia opened the door wearing her usual tight smile. "You're late," she said. "We're on time," I answered calmly. Inside, everything looked staged for a magazine spread. Lavender candles, lamb roast, wine chilled to the exact right temperature. Vanessa sat on the couch like royalty, barely glancing at Noah. Then Daniel stood up and held out his hand. "Nice to meet you." His hazel eyes met mine, warm, steady, and something passed between us that I couldn't name. He crouched down slightly to Noah's level. "What grade are you in?" "5th, Noah said. "Best year," Daniel smiled. "My volcano exploded at the science fair. You're gonna love it." Noah laughed, really laughed. No one else in that house ever made him feel noticed. Daniel did. Then Vanessa's voice sliced through the moment. "You're not wearing that to the wedding, right?" I looked down at my blouse and slacks. "It's just dinner." Patricia chimed in smoothly. "We didn't ask you to be a bridesmaid, dear, considering your situation." That word. Situation. Like my life was something that needed explaining or hiding. I stayed quiet, my nails digging into my palm. Daniel noticed. I saw his jaw tighten. Dinner dragged on, filled with wedding chatter and comments that sounded polite but landed sharp. Under the table, Noah held my hand. He always knew when I needed grounding. Later, while I sorted RSVP cards in Patricia's study, Daniel stepped in holding 2 coffees. "You're basically running this whole wedding," he said. "Someone has to," I replied. He studied me for a moment. "Did you ever volunteer at Memorial Children's Hospital?" I froze. "Yes, a long time ago. My sister Hannah was there," he said quietly. "You read to her. You sang. She said you made the hospital feel safe." My breath caught. "She called me Sunshine Girl." He nodded slowly. "That was you." In that moment, the room shifted. Daniel wasn't just Vanessa's fiancé anymore. He was the boy who'd watched his sister fade away, and remembered the woman who made her smile. After that night, things changed. Daniel started showing up in small, careful ways. A thank you text after I fixed the florist order. A quick call to double-check the reception layout. He always kept it professional, casual. But I wasn't blind. I noticed how he lingered during conversations, the softness in his voice when he asked about Noah. And most of all, I noticed how Vanessa didn't see any of it. Or maybe she just didn't care. To her, Daniel was an accessory, impressive, profitable, presentable. 2 weeks before the wedding, everything hit overload. Dress fittings, seating charts, guest list disasters. All of it landed on me without a single please or thank you. My nights disappeared into spreadsheets and delivery schedules. When I wasn't fixing Vanessa's meltdowns, I was helping Noah build his science fair volcano. We worked side by side at the kitchen table, his hands sticky with glue and baking soda. "You're doing too much, Mom," he said one night. I paused. "What makes you think that?" He shrugged. "You're always tired. You don't smile much anymore." I smiled then, not because he was wrong, but because he saw me. My 10-year-old noticed what the rest of my family never cared to. The next day Daniel called. "Can we meet somewhere quiet?" he asked. "I promise it's not about place cards." We met at a coffee shop near the marina, where espresso mixed with the smell of salt water. He looked worn down but determined. "I need to ask you something," he said once we Saturday, "and I know it's complicated." "Go ahead," I said, wrapping my hands around my mug. "I want you to be my maid of honor." I blinked. "That's not how this works. Vanessa didn't even ask me to be a bridesmaid." "I know," he said quickly. "She wouldn't. But I told her this is what I want. You've already done everything and it feels right." "Daniel," I said carefully, "you're marrying my sister." He leaned closer. I thought I knew what I needed. Someone polished. Someone loud enough to drown out the grief. But then I saw you again, and I remembered what actually mattered. My heart raced as I shook my head. "This isn't about me." "Yes, it is," he said gently. "Hannah loved you. Now I understand why." I didn't say yes. I couldn't. But I didn't say no either. That night my phone rang. My mother's name lit up the screen. "What were you thinking?" she snapped before I could speak. "Vanessa is beside herself. You always have to make everything about you." "I didn't ask for anything," I said evenly. "Daniel did." "You always play the victim," she said. "Just don't ruin her day." "I won't," I replied. "But if she doesn't want me there, she can say it herself." There was a long silence on the line. "You can't back out now," my mother finally said. "Daniel's already told everyone. Don't make a scene." I ended the call without saying another word. Noah was stretched out on the couch, piecing together a Lego space station, completely focused. "Was that Grandma?" he asked, not even looking up. "Yeah." "She mean again?" I hesitated, choosing my words. "Let's just say she wasn't very nice." He nodded like he understood more than I wanted him to. "Then don't listen to her. You always tell me to ignore people when they're wrong." I laughed even though my chest hurt. "Guess it's time I take my own advice." In the days leading up to the wedding, Vanessa disappeared from my life completely. No calls. No texts. Not even her usual passive-aggressive emails, which somehow made it more unsettling. I thought about stepping away more times than I could count. But then I'd picture the look on Daniel's face when he talked about Hannah, or I'd remember how Hannah used to light up when Noah handed her one of his drawings. Sometimes I caught Daniel watching me, like he was studying something familiar but important. There was no flirting, no lingering touches, nothing inappropriate at all. Just awareness. Like we were both standing on the edge of something we didn't dare name. And through all of it there was Noah. At his next soccer game, Daniel showed up without warning, standing beside me on the sidelines. "I didn't know you were into youth sports," I said lightly. "I'm into seeing kids who matter being supported," he replied. Noah scored a goal that day. He ran straight toward us, glowing with pride, and Daniel dropped to one knee to give him a high five like it was the most natural thing in the world. That night, while I tucked Noah into bed, he whispered, "Is Daniel gonna be around more?" "Maybe," I said. "Why?" "I like him," he murmured. "He doesn't talk to me like I'm invisible." I kissed his forehead. "Me too, buddy." And just like that, something shifted, not just between Daniel and me but in the air around us. The wedding day arrived clear and warm, the kind of perfect spring day Charleston was known for. A soft breeze moved through the city, sunlight glowing golden, jasmine drifting in the air. Noah and I arrived early. He wore a navy suit and held my hand tightly, his face caught between excitement and nerves. I wore a simple sky blue dress. Elegant, understated, nothing flashy. I wasn't there to stand out. I just wanted to get through the day. "You look awesome, Mom," Noah whispered. That meant more to me than anything my family had ever said. Inside St. Andrew's Church, everything was flawless. White roses lined the aisles. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. Every detail matched Vanessa's vision perfectly. Bridesmaids buzzed around the dressing room, adjusting straps and sipping champagne. Vanessa stood at the center in her custom gown, glittering from head to toe. Her face was sharp, unreadable. She barely acknowledged me. "Try not to trip when we walk down the aisle," she said. "Good to see you too," I replied evenly. Patricia sat nearby, already critiquing the photographer's angles. When she looked at me, she murmured, "That dress. Very you." I didn't flinch. I'd been called plain my whole life. It didn't hurt anymore. The ceremony passed in a blur. I walked behind Vanessa, held her bouquet, fixed her veil. I did everything with calm precision, not for her but for myself. For Noah, sitting in the front pew beside Daniel's father, his legs swinging nervously, his face lighting up every time our eyes met. For Daniel, who caught my gaze from the altar and gave me a small, steady nod. Nothing prepared me for what came next. The reception was held in a grand ballroom at the Charleston Opera House. Towering ceilings, candlelight, crystal everywhere. Champagne towers shimmered beneath chandeliers. It was lavish and strangely cold, like so many things my family prized. Dinner had just been served when Vanessa took the microphone. "I want to thank everyone for being here today," she said sweetly. "Especially my incredible bridal party, and of course my maid of honor, Megan." Polite applause followed. I nodded. Then her tone shifted just slightly, but I knew that edge well. "And I really admire her," she continued, her smile tightening. "Raising a child alone takes courage, especially when no one's ever really loved you." The room went still. A few people laughed awkwardly. "She's still available, everyone," Vanessa added, laughing. "Anyone in the market for secondhand goods with a bonus kid?" Laughter rippled through the ballroom. My mother laughed loudest. My stomach dropped. Noah's small hand slid into mine beneath the table. He was shaking. I stood. I needed to get him out. Away from that room. Away from the cruelty. Then a chair scraped loudly behind me. Daniel stood up. The room fell silent. He walked to Vanessa and gently took the microphone from her hand. "I need to say something," he said, his voice low but steady. Vanessa laughed nervously. "Daniel, what are you?" He raised a hand and she stopped. "This was supposed to be my wedding," he said. "But tonight reminded me that no amount of money, flowers, or polished appearances can hide the truth." Gasps spread through the room. He turned and looked at me. "Megan and I didn't meet last month. We met years ago at Memorial Children's Hospital. My sister Hannah was dying." I froze. Noah squeezed my hand tighter. "Megan was the one who sat with her," Daniel continued. "She read to her. She sang. She made her laugh. She was our light in the darkest time." The room was silent. "She brought her son too," he said. "Noah drew stars and planets for Hannah. She kept them by her bed. She called him her little astronaut." You could hear a pin drop. Daniel faced the crowd again. "So when I heard what was said tonight about Megan, about Noah, I knew I couldn't go through with this." Vanessa's mouth fell open. "You don't mean that?" Daniel didn't blink. "I absolutely do. I'm calling off the wedding." Gasps erupted. A glass shattered somewhere behind us. My mother stood, pale and shaking. "You don't know what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing," Daniel said. "Send me the bill." Then he walked over to Noah and dropped to one knee. "Thank you," he said gently, "for being the light you are." Noah blinked, unsure, but nodded. Daniel stood and turned to me. "Come with me." For a moment I couldn't move. It felt like my entire life had been funneling toward this one impossible moment. Then I took his hand. Together we walked out. Past Vanessa's tears, past my mother's glare. Past every person who ever made me feel small. We didn't stop walking until we were outside, standing beneath the Charleston stars. Daniel flagged down a cab and gave the driver an address. I know a place, he said. It's quiet. Right by the water. The restaurant turned out to be a small seafood shack overlooking the harbor. A wooden deck stretched out over the water. Fairy lights hung overhead, and waves rolled in softly nearby. For the first time all day, I felt like I could finally breathe. We didn't talk much while we ate. Noah colored on a napkin with crayons the waiter brought him. Daniel stared out at the water, lost in thought. Eventually, he broke the silence. I'm sorry. For what? I asked. For the speech. For the chaos. For all of it. You don't apologize for telling the truth, I said. He nodded slowly. After Hannah died, I lost myself. Vanessa was noise. I thought that's what I needed to survive. But it wasn't, I said gently. No, he whispered. It wasn't. His phone buzzed on the table. Vanessa's name lit up the screen. He turned it face down. She's not going to stop calling, I said quietly. She'll hear from my lawyer, he replied. Noah looked up then. Daniel. Yeah, buddy. Those drawings I made, the stars for the lady in the hospital? Daniel smiled softly. That was my sister. She loved them. She said I was funny, Noah added. Daniel nodded. You were her hero. The waves rolled in again, steady and calm, and for the first time in years, silence didn't feel empty. It felt peaceful. The next morning, we went to visit Hannah's grave. The cemetery was quiet, tucked between tall pine trees and overlooking the bay. Daniel walked slowly, holding white daisies in one hand and a small painted stone in the other. A yellow sun with stars, the edges worn smooth from time. Noah walked beside him, hands stuffed into his coat pockets. That was hers, he asked, nodding toward the stone. Daniel nodded. She kept it by her bed. We stopped at the marker. Simple. Clean. Just one word carved into it, beloved. Daniel knelt, placed the flowers down, then gently set the stone beside them. She always said your drawings made her feel brave, he told Noah. Noah stared at the stone. I didn't think she'd remember me. She never forgot you. I stood behind them, my heart heavy but not broken. It didn't feel like grief anymore. Felt like closure. Daniel stood and reached for my hand. This time I didn't hesitate. A year later, my life looked nothing like I thought it ever would. I opened a small financial office downtown. Hale Financial Services. The name was Daniel's idea. You built this, he told me. Let people know it. The office was warm and honest. Nothing fancy. Just real. Behind my desk hung Noah's latest drawing. A rocket ship blasting through a sky full of stars. Business was steady. Word spread. People came not just for numbers and advice, but because I listened. At home, Noah thrived. He was stronger, more confident. He became the kind of kid who stood up for others, not just himself. And Daniel? He didn't miss a single soccer game, dinner, or bedtime story. We weren't married yet, but we were already a family. As for Vanessa and my mother, they slowly faded out of our lives. Vanessa's career never recovered after the wedding scandal. People talked. Calls stopped coming. She moved away quietly without a goodbye. My mother tried to reach out. Voicemails. Awkward apology cards. I didn't respond. Not out of anger, I just didn't have anything left to give. Some endings don't need revenge. Just silence. It was Christmas Eve when Daniel brought out the box. Noah was asleep on the couch, the glow of the tree lights flickering across his face. Daniel and I sat by the fire, mugs of cocoa warming our hands. This belonged to Hannah, he said, opening the lid. Inside was a vintage emerald ring. She told me to give it to someone who reminded me what love really means, he said. That's you. Tears came before I could stop them. Megan, he said softly, will you marry me? I looked at the ring, then at the boy asleep beneath the tree, then at the man who saw me long before I saw myself. Yes, I whispered. Outside, snow began to fall, light, quiet, gentle, like peace finally finding a place to land. There's something funny about healing. You don't notice it when it starts. It doesn't arrive with fireworks or applause. It's quieter than that, like a door you forgot was locked suddenly swinging open. For years, I thought survival was the best I could hope for. I believed if I stayed useful, stayed small, stayed quiet, maybe I'd earned a little grace. I thought love had to be paid for with sacrifice. I was wrong. Real love, the kind that heals, the kind that lasts, doesn't ask you to prove your worth. It sees you exactly as you are and chooses you anyway. When Vanessa mocked me at her wedding, I could have let it define me. I could have walked away again, carrying the same old cruelty I'd been handed my whole life. But that moment became something else. It became a line in the sand. On one side stood perfection and pretending. On the other stood truth. Daniel chose truth. And beside us stood Noah, my son, my anchor, my reason. I don't know what the future holds. I don't expect life to be easy just because I finally stepped into the light. But I do know this. I have a home now. Not just walls and a roof, but a place where we laugh, fight fair, and let each other be human. I have work that matters. A son who shines. And a man who never once asked me to make myself smaller. Vanessa once called me second-hand. But second-hand means lived in, tested, resilient. And I'll take that any day over being shiny and hollow. If you're listening and you've ever been told you weren't enough, weren't wanted, weren't worthy, please hear this. That was never the truth. You were always more than they could see. And you were always worth choosing. I see you. And I hope one day you see yourself too.